and I apologize, but I've changed it slightly to learning to ring methods using more than just the blue line, because I think there is a big distinction between learning methods and actually ringing methods, the action of ringing methods. Part of learning to ring methods is learning about practicing how to physically move your bell, both backstroke and handstroke, through changes and pieces of work. I think this is incredibly important, and as we're at a sort of stage where we may be returning to general ringing, I do think this is something that's quite difficult to practice on ringing room. It's sort of doable, but the reality is you can only really practice it in the tower. I also want to say that this is a taster. It's an aid memoir or a beginner's guide. This subject area of how to ring methods is vast, absolutely vast. But it's stuff we can all start thinking about doing at any stage you're at if you haven't thought about it before. And it's all interconnected, just like the structural grid of a method. I don't think of myself as an expert, and there may be more experienced ringers on this Zoom than me. Please feel free to chip in. If you hear me say something that you think is wrong, just say so. And this applies actually to everybody. I noticed that everybody's got their mics off. I would prefer this to be an open mic session with questions if you feel like making questions. It is a presentation, and I may, please don't be offended if I turn around and say, well, leave that, or I can't answer that. We've got a lot to get through, or I've decided that there's quite a lot to get through in about 35 minutes. So, but discussion is welcomed, and there will be times when I'll ask people what they think or what their ideas are. We're going to start with a brief why. Why do we want to learn more about methods? Then look at an overview of how. That overview in one screen encapsulates an immense amount of information. We then concentrate on the treble, leave that to look at how you move your bell through hunting places and pieces of work, and then return to the treble to see more about how it can help. The real thrust of this is learning, is the idea of deconstruct. Think about what you want to do, deconstruct it into simple bits and practice those, build those up, practice, 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 practice. That's what the real thrust of this is. I can't tell you how to do it. We all learn differently. We all think about things differently. There's a huge array of resources out there, both to learn about and to practice, even without going into the tower. So here goes. Let's see how this goes. Oh, and the last thing I'll say, this is the first time I've given a presentation. It's the first time we've used Keynote on the computer. Please bear with me if things go wrong. Hopefully they won't. Okay, so, oh, I need to share screen, don't I? Oh no, something's gone wrong already.
No, not at all, not at all. So if you go to the bottom, Andrew, and share.
Unfortunately, I can't, because I've got to go through the whole thing. This will probably take a few minutes, and I'll keep waffling while I'm doing it. One thing that I found when I was learning to use the software on my computer is there's absolutely no way for me to go backwards on the presentation. And I've researched and tried to find using more than just the blue line. So as I said, the first thing I want to think about is, why would we want to learn methods using more than just the blue line? And the obvious answer is to ring better. But this encapsulates all sorts of different things. First of all, I've just got a thing on the screen saying the host has spotlighted my video. Is that?
That's fine. That's fine.
The first one is to reduce, simplify, ease your workload. And this is about memory. And it might feel counterintuitive when you see the rest of this presentation, because there are so many possibilities of what you can do. But even if you start with the one that I'm suggesting, your workload is reduced by knowing more about how the method works. These are the biggies, and they're sort of chicken and egg ones, because they're both, why would you want to learn methods better, and how do you learn methods better? Develop better listening skills, develop better rope sight. And these are about really striking and rhythm and striking. Fourth one, And this is just a random list at this stage. Why would we want to ring better? To understand, I am doing this piece of work, or I'm doing this thing because, or I'm going to do such and such because. And sort of obviously from developing better listening skills and developing better ropeside, develop better striking. Another reason you might want to is to develop a multi-method repertoire. We can build methods by knowing very, very few, by things like overworks, underworks, half lead work, lead end work. Don't worry about all the terms I'm using. If you don't understand them, then they will come with time and with practice. This is an important one. I would suggest that the conductor's job isn't to put people right. The conductor's job is to stay right themselves and put the calls in the right place and be aware of when changes may be wrong. It's a difficult one to talk about, but if you learn some of these things, we all mess up, but you're able to recorrect yourself much more quickly and much more easily and get straight back I talk about the line, straight back on the line and ring properly. And the sort of reverse of that is for you to be a reason for learning methods better is for you to be able to stay right and possibly know what's going wrong if others mess up. I think my mouth is going dry already. How do we do this? Big how. What I've got there is a couple of toolboxes. Think about where you are now between that funny little toolbox at the bottom with a few screwdrivers, a hammer, something to measure with, and I don't even know what that thing is on the left in the rack. The difference between that and the ability of what you can do with that and the massive toolbox behind and the ability that you can do with that. I mean, the sort of end point is you can create that toolbox that all the tools are sitting in. So how do we develop? The first four that I'm going to put up are the biggies. First one is learn to use the path of the treble. This is, I would suggest, incredibly important, but I think there's a lot of ringers out there who may be vaguely aware of what the treble's doing, or may be aware of when the treble's leading, but actually learning the whole path of the treble, why it is so controlling of what you can do. Next one of the biggies is study structure and grids, pieces of work, seeing rules. We'll come on to a little bit of this later, and particularly grids help you to see how a method is actually put together, where the dodges are in relation to the treble, where the places are, whether they're hand stroke, whether they're hand stroke, backstroke, and so on and so forth. The next one is, which I'm barely going to touch in this talk, is learning to use play spells and their starts and their orders. In today's sessions, James Ramsbottom will be doing a session after this one on specifically play spells, and I'd really recommend combining these two. If you're watching this presentation as a recording, look for James's presentation if you want to know, or you want to start about play spells. And the final one that I'm not going to touch at all, learn to use the coursing order and how it's affected by calls. This one's enormous and enables conductors to know so much about what's going on in a method. But as I say, I'm not going to touch it at all. Okay. Again, all of these are affected by develop the skill of listening and hearing, develop the skill of rope sight and seeing. As I said, this is a chicken and egg. These things develop naturally as you do all this work on the first four. But there are ways that you can go back, you can drill down into the skills and start learning about the skill of listening and seeing by doing much simpler things. Develop the ability to deconstruct skills. This is the real essence of all of this, is if we look at maybe this big plane in the toolbox, works. The skill of using this plane is simply to smooth a piece of wood. But underneath that skill, there's a whole range of skills that enable to use that plane properly. Is it sharp? Is its bottom completely flat? If it's not, you're not going to get the result that you want. So go backwards from what you want to how you're going to actually enable yourself to get to what you want. In things like ringing, if we go back to learning to use the path of the treble, the path of the treble we will go into, but it's got leads, it's got half leads, and it's got hunting between those or dodging between those. The skill of using the path of the treble is the skill of listening to or seeing the path of the treble. Start in rounds, listen to the treble, don't even ring. Set up something like Ringing Room or Able, don't even ring, listen to the treble in rounds. Get a hang of that pinging at the front of every change. Then start listening to it when it's moving through something like Plain Hunt on 5, Plain Hunt on 7, Plain Hunt on 8. Start listening to the bell without actually ringing, then start ringing and trying to do the same things. First of all, you're ringing something that you know, Plain Hunt, and you listen to the treble leading in the rounds, and then listen to it through the Plain Hunt. Deconstruct where you want to be. The end point you want to be is you want to know where the treble is all the time. Think about how you can reduce that to lots of other skills and work on each one by one. Each one becomes a key to the next one. And the other thing that is incredibly important in the how to learn to ring methods is develop the ability and find the opportunities to learn and to practice. This is about imagination and curiosity, and connects with what I've just said about deconstructing skills. As I said, there are vast resources out there. Find them, find people to talk about, chat about, listen to conversations when you're out for coffee, when you're in the pub. Look for those opportunities to learn. Make the opportunities to learn. There's Phil's current project of the, I can't remember the name of the project, but Arthur, you may be able to help me, even though you're muted.
Yeah, it's the 3 events challenge.
Yeah, the 3 events. Think about doing things like that as ways that you can use to develop skills. Okay, we're going to leave all that behind, sort of, and we're going to have a look at just the first one that I mentioned, knowing the path of the treble. And this is incredibly important. I think the treble is your friend. And there are a series of rules about how the treble operates. First one is the treble follows a fixed path, and this never changes. The treble follows a fixed path, and this never changes. And the second one is the fixed path is either plain hunting or treble bob hunting. That's sort of it as far as the treble. There are anomalies, there are variations, but the vast majority of what you will ring if you're ringing plain methods, treble bob methods, and surprise methods will contain a treble bob hunting or a plain hunting treble, which never changes from lead to lead. I've got a few examples of this. So an example of plain hunting is plain bob doubles. So the treble is the red line. What I've given you here is the grid of the method. And what you can actually see, and I don't know if I can move it, but all your little faces are over it, is the whole of the plain course of plain bob doubles, 4 leads. There's one extra thing that's added on here, which is called the place notation. For plain bob doubles is something of an anomaly. Plain bob is really an even bell method. So plain bob doubles has a slightly odd place notation, but the place notation enables you to construct this grid. 5, 1, 5, 1, 5. What this is actually telling you, and there's lots and lots of resources out there for you to go and see, this is just a quick taster, is at the first change, there is a place at 5. All the other bells cross. At the second change, there is a place at 1. all the other bells cross. At the third change, there is a place at 5. All the other bells cross. In addition to knowing that part of the grid, and then that reverses at what's called the half lead. So we end up with 1, 5, 1, 5. In addition to that, which is all you need, half of the grid, you get the place notation for what's called the lead end, 1, 2, 5. Don't worry too much about the place notation at the moment. You can go out and find information about how to construct grids. This is treble plain hunting, and this is the treble bob hunting, Oxford treble bob minor. Again, I've given you the grid of all 5 leads of Oxford treble bob minor. But what I want you to concentrate on is the red line. Treble bob hunting, dodging in 1, 2, hunt, dodging in 3, 4, hunt, dodging in 5, 6. It can't go any further because there's only 6 bells ringing. So it makes a place in 6th, dodges 5, 6, hunts, dodges 3, 4, hunts, dodges 1, 2, and leads. Oxford treble bob minor. Look at the place notation. It's much, much clearer here how you construct the method. You can see all the crosses, where the cross is. Places in 3 and 4 at the second change. Third change is a cross. Fourth change is 1, 6. Cross, 1, 2. Cross, 1, 6. Cross, 1, 2. Don't worry about this too much. What I want you to concentrate on is the treble's path. A lead is from when the treble leads its full lead until the end of its full lead. So in plain bob doubles, the lead is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blows. The lead is from when the treble leaves its full lead, and the first blow, that's at backstroke, and the first blow is at handstroke, until it reaches the end of its full lead. So every one of those leads is the same. Exactly the same in treble bob. It's from when it leaves the full lead at backstroke, and the first change is moving to handstroke until it leads full at the end of the lead. The next basic true fact of every method you will leave is the treble's path. Every method that you ring is that the treble's path is symmetrical about the half lead and about its lead. So again, if you look at the plain bob doubles, it hunts to a place at the back, does another place at the back, and that place at the back is part of its hunt to the place at the front. It's completely symmetrical. The same with Oxford treble bob minor. In every lead of every method you ever ring, the treble's work is symmetrical. The final thing to say about this is when seen as a grid, which is what I've given you here, every lead of a method is identical to every other lead. It's quite obvious in plain bob doubles. They're all identical. In Oxford treble bob minor, it's not quite so obvious, but they are, I can guarantee you, all identical. There is no difference in the grid. The only thing that's changing is the numbers of the bells. Bit obvious, but I think it needs to be said. So, learning to hear or to see the treble's path whilst you're ringing a method is very useful. Can anybody give me an idea of why they think this is the case? Why is it useful to know the treble's path? Let's take this back a bit. How many, can I have a show? In fact, I can't see everybody, so I'm not quite sure how I do this.
I can keep an eye on it.
Okay. How many of you were aware of all the things that I've just said? Is there anybody out there?
I was aware, Andrew, of what you've been saying.
Yeah, a couple of people.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thumbs up.
Except for that business of every lead of the grid being identical.
Right.
But you did clarify it was still very worth hearing it all.
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear what you're saying.
I think it was that, correct me if I'm wrong, that every lead in the grid was symmetrical. I think that was the...
Symmetrical, yeah.
Identical. I hadn't clocked the fact that every lead is identical.
Okay. Now, all of you say that you know all those things. So what do you think that learning to hear or see that treble's path helps you with?
Dan Calvert's put in the chat box that so I think this is a specific example, but it tells you what to do. So, for example, it tells you what dodge you do at the next lead end. So, for example, in playing Bob
Right, that's one way of looking at it. I'm thinking more about actually hearing the bell leading and actually see. I mean, that's a part of seeing where you pass the bell. Let's move on.
Andrew, I can't type quickly enough, but can I just add? For me, I've been going to be very honest with you. I sometimes find it difficult to keep my concentration, and having a treble that's right gives me confidence that I'm doing the right thing. And so when I'm ringing, I'm keeping an eye on the treble, because if I'm doing something like playing Bob or Grunt, so I know what my next dodge is, but as I pass the treble, it confirms what I'm doing. And if I've forgotten what I'm doing, it tells me what I'm doing.
Right. This is one way of ringing that I'm sort of overlaying some new skills on top of. When I say helps you to ring by the rules, if you look at plain Bob doubles, which it is a slight anomaly because there's stuff going on at the back that isn't quite normal, but don't worry about that. If you look at plain Bob doubles, the entire grid is plain hunt. It's identical to the grid for plain hunt. I haven't got a grid for plain hunt, but if we follow the path of the two, plain hunting, if it continued to plain hunt at this point, it would come back into seconds place. And the same with, if we take the path of the three, if it continued to plain hunt at this point where the treble is leading, it'll end up in third place. So if it wasn't for this stuff going on at the lead where the treble is leading, then plain Bob doubles would just be plain hunt. The difference between plain hunt and plain Bob doubles is a single blow when the treble's leading at backstroke. So what I mean by helps you to ring by the rules is, instead of thinking of where do I pass the treble, say, let's see if I can find it, an example that's furthest from the lead. The second leads, hunts into seconds, into thirds, into fourths, and passes the treble as it moves from fourths to fifths to lie at the back. You're thinking, as I pass the treble in 4-5, I've got to do a 3-4 down. That's actually quite a lot of work to think that through, and to think that through for all the time that you're ringing. Another way of thinking of it is, I am plain hunting until the treble leads. When the treble leads, I do something, and then I carry on plain hunting. Okay, I'm going to move on from this because we're going to be working on. I mean, we've taken a lot of time so far, so it helps you to understand what you can and can't do. Helps you to ring by play spell, which, as I said, James is going to be looking at, and helps you to ring multiple methods using, and I've just given you one of them, the lead end, but there's also stuff that goes on at the half lead and stuff that goes on over the treble, this area, and under the treble, this area.
And Andrew, sorry, could you just make sure everyone's happy with this? Just remind us what half lead. I'm sure people do know, but just to make sure.
Sorry, say that again.
Can you remind us all what the half lead is, or where the half lead is on a method?
Unfortunately, I've had this problem again that I've clicked the mouse and I can't go backwards. We'll start working on this, and we'll have a look at the half lead when the next image comes up, because it's still plain Bob doubles, but with a little more information on.
Perfect.
Okay. I apologize to everybody. This is as much a learning experience for me, I think, as it is for you, how to present. I want to look now, and this does connect with the half lead, at hand stroke and backstroke. And this is much more to do with how we ring the bells and how we move a bell through changes. And the image that I can use, and I guess I can go back and show you where the half lead is. I've added another part of the next lead so you can see much clearer the overwork. But the half lead is the point at which the treble's work is symmetrical. So the half lead is when the treble is making its two places at the back. And the reason that I'm looking at handstroke and backstroke here, and one of the things that's slightly odd about plain bob doubles is I've written in the backstroke and the handstroke on this grid. And what you notice is that the handstroke and backstroke lead, or all the bells lead with a handstroke and a backstroke. The two blows that you make in lead are handstroke and backstroke, handstroke, backstroke, handstroke, backstroke. Every bell and the treble leads handstroke and backstroke. But if you look at the back in plain bob doubles, all of the bells do it the other way around. Backstroke, handstroke, backstroke, handstroke, backstroke, handstroke. This is slightly unusual. Most of the time, the trebles, when you're ringing even methods, the trebles half lead will be at handstroke and backstroke, and there's a much clearer indication of what's going on. So I'll ask the question, is everybody clear where the half lead is?
I think that was really clear. And if anyone isn't clear, just let us know.
Fantastic. So we're thinking about handstroke and backstroke. Can I have some ideas from people about why I think this is so important when we're ringing, when we're moving our bell through changes? We're moving, say, let's just look at the treble in plain bob doubles. It's starting with the backstroke of its lead. It moves to a handstroke in seconds place, backstroke in thirds place, handstroke in fourths place, backstroke and handstroke in fifths place before hunting back down again. Any suggestions, any thoughts about why handstroke and backstroke? I'm thinking that handstroke and backstroke are important when we ring.
You can either unmute yourself or...
It's about rhythm.
But it's useful to have the handstroke gap. Because that can help pinpoint where you are. That's
exactly what I'm looking for, that gap at handstroke. And the words handstroke and backstroke and the thought about what handstroke and backstroke is are simple. The complexity of how you deal with the fact that the handstroke is rung very slightly slower and the backstroke is rung very slightly quicker is vast. And how do we practice getting our head round the fact that we have to move our bell differently to make a place that is handstroke, backstroke, to how we move our bell making a place that's backstroke, handstroke. Okay, just as I say, these are all sort of tasters, just ideas, things to think about. So let's have a look at an ABC of three things that happen when we move through changes. The first one is you can only do one of three things when you move from one change to the next. And these are all displays. What this ABC will actually give you is something that is true of every method you ever ring on any number of bells. So you can only do one of three things when you move from one change to the next. You can move later in the change, which is the treble hunting up. Say we take the 4, its first change is hunting down, so you can only move one place to hunt down, or you can stay in one place. So that's all there is with what you can do while you're ringing. You can either move one blow earlier, move one blow later, or stay in place. The next three is there are only 3 speeds when moving from one change to the next. Any suggestions about what the speed is when you move from one blow earlier in the method? You move down in the method. What's the speed? You want to move your bell
sooner.
Quicker, absolutely. What about when you're moving one blow later in the change?
Slower.
Slower. And to stay in place?
Steady.
Okay, steady's good. So slightly quicker, slightly slower, stay the same. Now, what you can see on the screen here looks incredibly simple, but it is unbelievably complex, because it's not really 3 speeds we're moving from one change to the next. It's actually 6. It's either the hand stroke moving up or down or staying in place, and the backstroke moving up, down and staying in place. And I'd like you, when you get back in the tower and you're ringing things that you find very, very simple, start really thinking about how you move your bell from hunting into leading, how you move your bell from hunting into a place, how you move your bell from hunting into a dodge. And that brings us to the last 3 biggies of everything you ever do in any method. There are only 3 building blocks for all methods you ever encounter: making a place, hunting, and dodging. Making a place is generally only 2 blows. In plain bob doubles, you can see that you're making a place when you're at the back, when the treble is leading. At the lead end, you make a long place, 4 blows. This is relatively rare in most methods. It happens occasionally when you get bobs and singles, but I'm not touching on bobs and singles at all here. You can go out yourselves and find out what the place notation is for a bob or a single in plain bob or in any method you want. So there are only 3 building blocks: making a place and hunting. Making a place and hunting are the relatively easy ones, although making a place can be hand stroke, backstroke, and backstroke, hand stroke. Hunting can be right hunting and wrong hunting. Dodging is the biggie. So we have, and as I say, we have all of these in plain bob doubles. So if we look at 5th place bell, so it lies in 5ths, hunts down into 4ths, hunts down into 3rds, hunts down into 2nds, leads hand stroke and backstroke, hunts out into 2nds, hunts past the treble into 3rds. It's now above the treble, so it's expecting the treble to lead. It hunts into 4th place as the treble does its hand stroke lead. It's aware of the treble leading. It knows it's going to have to do a dodge. So it drops back 1 blow into 3rds place, and from that point on, it's plain hunting. Think of dodges as 2 points, or a single dodge. This is incredibly important. Think of dodges as points. So a dodge takes up 2 blows, the hand stroke and backstroke. Hand stroke, backstroke, 2 points. It runs over 4 changes. So it's still hunting, but that first change of the hunt is actually part of the dodge. So the change from that point to the point that you make in the dodge. It's then dropping back 1 point, and then it's rising 4 blows, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the reason why the bell at the back has to do 4 blows. It cannot drop into these 2 bells that are dodging. So that's one point about the dodge. Think of it as points. That means that you can have dodges that are 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, going up up to maybe 18 points. 18-point dodge is a 9 pull dodge, is always 9 dodges. So 2-point dodge is a single dodge. A single point dodge is what we call a point. The reason I'm telling you about these is there are 3 methods. I mean, this is another 3. Maybe I should have added it as the big 3. There are 3 methods that we tend to encounter, or actually 2 methods and a principle that we tend to encounter when we are learning to ring. Plain bob doubles, Grancer doubles, and Stedman. Stedman doubles, maybe Stedman triples. In those 3 methods, you encounter every single one of these building blocks of methods in every single possibility. Places that are either hand stroke, backstroke, or backstroke, hand stroke. Hunting that is either right hunting or wrong hunting. And dodging that is a 1-point dodge, which is the point in Stedman, a 2-point dodge, which is the single dodge in plain bob doubles or in Oxford or all sorts of other methods. In Grancer, you encounter a double dodge, In Stedman, you encounter a double dodge. In Stedman, you also encounter, if you're ringing Stedman triples, a 5-pull dodge. So all of these are all that we use to make up any method you ever ring. All it ever is combinations of making a place, hunting and dodging. What's incredibly important is to think about how your hand strokes and backstrokes work through this. What I've done here, plain bob doubles, I do with really complex methods. I want to know, are the points that I'm going to do at hand stroke or backstroke? Why are they at hand stroke or back? What's going on below them? What's going on above them? All of these things you can develop from just plain bob doubles. And I know it's really bad to say just, because plain bob doubles is very, very difficult when we first encounter it. But if you start thinking about these things when you encounter plain bob doubles or at any stage you're at, they will help you in everything you do. Now, I've got maybe sort of 5 minutes left before we get to the proper end of this session. I really want, I'm going to go through the last screen incredibly quickly. You can come back to it maybe and slow it down once this is recorded, because I really want to open this up to lots and lots of discussion if people want that. So there's a second part to the treble is your friend, and it's about lead ends, overworks, working around the treble, half leads, and underworks. And the first thing I've done with this is to extend plain bob doubles to what this is difficult to say. Plain bob doubles is a slight anomaly because of that 4-pull dodge in fifths, but I've extended it to right place plain bob minor, where you can really clearly see the rule. The rule is ring plain hunt until the treble leads, 1 bell makes seconds, all the other bells dodge in whatever place that you find yourself. You can ring plain bob without knowing the blue line at all. You don't need to learn the blue line. You can start concentrating on the treble. When you hear the treble in its last blow before it leads, you know that you're about to do a dodge. You know that the dodge is going to be in 3-4 or 5-6. If you're in that position or that area when you hear the treble lead, dodge, then carry on plain hunting. That's all you need. Overworks and underworks. This, as I say, I apologize, this is incredibly fast. This triangle is the overwork. In plain bob minor, it's all plain hunting. Everybody is plain hunting in the underwork. When you pass the treble, you're doing this overwork. The overwork is plain hunting, except when the treble leads. So you can use these to start changing the overworks and the underworks. And we can change plain bob minor into St. Clement's bob minor. St. Clement's bob minor, that triangle of overwork is identical to that triangle of overwork. So you can keep that rule when you're ringing St. Clement's College bob minor. When the treble leads, 1 bell makes seconds, everybody else dodges. But what happens under is the bell that's past the treble after its 3-4 dodge, past the treble after its 3-4 dodge down, does a 3-pull dodge on the front, leads, and then it passes the treble to be over the treble, and it follows the rule of plain bob minor. The bell that has followed the rule of plain bob minor and made seconds in the next lead drops under the treble, leads and does a 3-pull dodge. After it's done the 3-pull dodge, it hunts, passes the treble's now leading, it dodges 3-4. So you can ring St. Clement's College bob minor simply by knowing those rules. And I know this is pushing the complexity. You can come back to this and you can think about it yourselves. In addition, you can add another method.
Realised I'd got her phone number. I couldn't find it.
Sorry?
Her name is just, of course, we've got it on the WhatsApp group. That had not occurred to me. But she's at home for a family celebration weekend. Yeah, and I've now sent her a message on WhatsApp.
Andrew, I think it's somebody.
Sorry, I think that's somebody
needs to be
talking.
muted.
Michael, isn't it?
I've just muted them.
Sorry, I didn't get a word of that about WhatsApp. The final image that is going to come up is how you change from St. Clement's College bob minor. And this is another way of adding a method repertoire that is not about overworks and underworks, but is about what you do at the lead end or the half lead, is you turn St. Clement's into College bob minor by changing the lead end into a hunt. So instead of making a dodge, instead of making places, every bell plain hunts. But the rules stay the same when you go under the treble. I haven't got time to talk through that or even chat about that more. I would quite like to go back, and I'm not quite sure how I can do it. I think we can do it like this. Can you see what's going there? I'd quite like to hear people's views for a few minutes. We've probably only got about 5 minutes, but hear people's views about this, about how you move your bell through changes, how you work the bell, and how you can develop your ability to do that. Stunned silence.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of people are muting. Should we start with Christine?
Well, just thinking about the 4 blows at the back,
right.
I find it useful to remember that the middle 2 blows are hand and back, and that helps me space the bells out properly.
Right.
So that's just one thought.
Are you aware when you're doing that hand and back that it's over the bells that are dodging?
Not consciously. I mean, I know logically that's what's happening, but I don't think about that when I'm doing it. I just make sure the hand stroke gap is in the right place. So this
is what I'm really talking about, is once you've got to a stage where you feel comfortable ringing plain bob, either by the rules and the circle of work or by just doing some work when the treble leads, once you're comfortable with that, start looking while you're doing those 4 blows in fifths at what the bells are doing under you, because it is 2 bells that are just swapping.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts?
I hadn't really thought about those 6 speeds. That's been interesting. And so presumably you have to exaggerate the dodge in one.
That's something that's really interesting when you're ringing on 5, that this dodge is the movement from hand stroke in 4ths to backstroke in 3rds is much more exaggerated than you would get if you were ringing on 8, 10 or 12. Because partly because, I mean, it's really, this is something you sort of have to do to get your head around, is that you could carry on plain hunting. Even the moves in plain hunting on a smaller number of bells are slightly more exaggerated. I mean, what are you, do you have more thoughts about that?
I guess it's something that I must have learned kind of naturally to do, but I haven't been conscious of it, and being aware of it, I think, might help.
What I'm going to say now is
accurate.
What I'm going to say now is probably quite difficult to say without sounding rude. Is there a problem that we encounter, or that we can encounter, is that learning a method on paper is relatively easy, but actually moving the bell through things like places and dodges in something like Cambridge Minor or Cambridge Major isn't easy. The skills that are needed to move the bell need to be learnt, and this is all about rhythm and striking. This is all about the quality of striking. So how do you take yourself, if you are struggling with striking things like lead point lead in Stedman, or the thirds point lead thirds in Stedman, take yourself back and ring the treble to something like plain bob, and really, really concentrate on how your body is working the bell before the next piece of work you're doing. So when you're hunting, how are you making the bell move? When you move from hunting to lead, how are you thinking? Just be aware of what you're actually doing at the hand stroke so that the backstroke is in the right place. And then start building it up. Ring an inside bell and see what you're doing physically when you're moving from seconds place, from lead to seconds place, back to lead, back to plain hunting. This becomes very, very important when you are developing into more complex combinations of these 3 building blocks. How do you move your bell at hand stroke and at backstroke, from place to a dodge, to another place, to a point, to another place, to a hunt? doing it when you're ringing plain bob doubles and everything you're ringing, thinking it through. If you're struggling with striking, as you said, for some people it is sort of intuitive, but for others of us, I had to really struggle with it, figuring out, and I had to struggle with it partly because of my physicality. I can't use my legs to ring. Everything is from my waist up. So I need to be aware of how I can move the bell to where I want it with the absolute least amount of effort. How do you do that?
Andrew, can I just endorse what you're saying? Because what I've seen sometimes with people is that they can get disheartened when other ringers are putting them right, and yet they thought they were in the right place.
Yes.
And what they sometimes struggle to understand is that if they're not placing the bell correctly, others will think that they've missed a dodge or whatever, and that actually getting the handling correct is so important. And part of that is, as you've been describing, knowing whether you're moving more slowly or more quickly, or indeed staying steady and staying in the same place. I really endorse what you're saying.
Thank you. That's cool. Unfortunately, we really do have to stop because we need a bit of a break before the next session start, and I apologize for that. But I want to say thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for bearing with the issues and problems at the beginning. I think we really need another sort of 15-20 minutes of chatting, but unfortunately we haven't got that. I hope that you've taken something from this, and I hope you can go back to it if you didn't understand things. I hope you've got friends you can talk to about some of the stuff I said. I hope it's given something to everyone, and I wish you well on your journey through learning to ring methods.
Andrew, I hope that you've also enjoyed today, and I take your point about time, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities for us to have you back and to continue these discussions in the near future. But on behalf of the Guild and on behalf of everyone here today, can I thank you for the preparation you put into the talk and for engaging it with us. It's such an important topic. You've got lots and lots of thanks coming into the chat box, so
thank you.
Please have a look at that. I'm going to stop recording. You're absolutely right. We do need a